Erev Tov. This is going to be chapter 3, a deeper look, right, on intimacy and shalom. The facilitator of Shalom Bayit. Okay, so listen carefully. Yeah, it says like this. After learning about the overwhelming magnitude of shalom in the eyes of the Torah, we need to discern the primary facilitator of Shalom Bayit. Although proper Shalom Bayit depends on many factors, Chazal, they explain that one particular part of a person plays a very central role in maintaining Shalom Bayit between a husband and a wife. Which part exactly? So he says, Elmaleh Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta. Says Rabbi to Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, מפני מה לא הקבלנו פניך ברגל, כדרך שהקבילו אבותיי לאבותיך. So he comes, says, why? So Rabbi comes and he asks Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, why is it that you didn't come to greet me on the just like your fathers? My fathers came to your fathers. So he answered, Elmaleh, סלעים נעשו גבוהים, קרובים נעשו רחוקים, משתיים נעשו שלוש, משים שלום בבית בטל. What does that mean? He comes and he says like this. The rocks, they became mountains. And things that were close became very far. 2 became 3. And the facilitator of Shalom Bayit has become fulfilled. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Rabbeinu Nisim Gaon, right? He comes and he says, the facilitator of Shalom Bayit is the desire which awakens the shalom between a man and his wife. And that's also how the way that Rashi explains that as well. So therefore he comes and he says like this. The point of the conversation was that Rabbi asked his student, Rabbi Shimon, why didn't he fulfill the obligation of coming up, right? Lakbil penei rabo baregel. You know what, you ever heard of that concept? No. Meaning every single shalosh regalim, you have a mitzvah to visit your rabbi. It's a mitzvah. I remember until today we used to have Ben Azmani. Ben Azmani means we used to have vacation in yeshiva. But I remember many times during Chol HaMoed, they would come and they would visit the Rosh Yeshiva. They would come to his house and visit him. It's a mitzvah. Mitzvah le'akbil penei rabo b'moed. So basically he came and he asked, no, why don't you come? Yeah, that's what he asked him. So he comes and he answered like this. He said, right, Rabbi Shimon responded by explaining that he became old at what were once small stones that were easy to traverse became difficult obstacles. What was once close became far. And his 2 legs need a help of a 3rd leg. That's the cane. Everyone understood?
No.
Yeah, one more time, right? Yeah, we're talking about the rocks became mountains. Things that were close became far. 2 became 3, and the facilitator of Shalom Bayit has become nullified. So what does that mean? So we just said the entire concept is that once upon a time little tiny stones became big obstacles. What was something so close to a house now became very, very far away. The 2 legs became 3 legs because of the cane. So while all these explanations are well understood, Rabbi Shimon continued to explain further, the facilitator of Shalom Bayit has become nullified. What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? The commentators explain that the facilitator of Shalom Bayit is none other than the husband's intimate relations with his wife. This is undeniably shocking. He says, why is it going to be shocking? He says, as far as the Torah is concerned, one of the essential ingredients of Shalom Bayit is the couple's intimacy. Yeah? One of the most essential. Yeah? So he comes and he says, in this context, Rabbi Shimon taught that since he was much older and he lost his ability to be involved with intimacy, his Shalom Bayit lost one of its primary foundations. Yeah? He can't. So what happens? He lost one of the primary foundations. That's what he lost. Okay? So now he comes and he says like this. Darash Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva comes and he's going to be Doresh. Right? And he says like this. Ish v'isha zachu shechina benehem. He comes and he says, if you have a man and a woman, they're going to be zocheh. They have shechina between them. Lo zachu, they did not zocheh. Shochlatan, the fire is going to consume them. Okay? From Rabbi Akiva's words, right? It comes and it says like this. It's clear that marriage opens a new door to opportunity to live with the Shekhinah. Meaning, people don't understand that they come and they think, one second, all of a sudden they're getting married, they have now a chance to live with the Shekhinah. Right. Because beforehand they were by themselves. The Shekhinah doesn't reside on somebody by himself. Right? The Shekhinah only resides on a couple when they're together. So how does a couple merit a special relationship? 10 people is not permanent. You have a minyan, you have 10 people, the Shekhinah comes and then he goes. Here the Shekhinah stays.
Always in the house?
Yes. As long as there's Shalom Bayit, obviously. Right? So he comes and he says, if people were asked what merit is Rabbi Akiva describing that will bring the divine presence into one's home, certainly many would say that one would welcome the poor into their homes, open up their homes to Torah classes, right? Or never allow Lashon Hara. Meaning right now, we're going to ask you, Remy, what is the secret to having the Shekhinah in your house? What are you going to answer?
Definitely.
I was taught by our teachers of Moshe Feinstein and the Stipler that the only condition needed, the only condition needed to merit this special relationship with a Shekhinah is a couple's proper use of intimacy. That's all you need. That's a secret. Shalom Bayit, you have everything. That's all that you need. Yeah. This truth is also explicit in the words of Rashi, which explains that the merit that is needed revolves around the quality of the couple's intimacy. And these are the words of Rabbi Akiva, Zachu, Lalechet bederech yeshara, to go in the proper path, Shelo yehe hu noef, velo hi noefet. Not that he's fooling around, and not that she's fooling around. Yeah. That's what he says. And that's the straight path. So once again, from the words of Rashi, it's actually going to be very, very clear that the requirement for meriting the Shekhinah doesn't demand lofty levels of spirituality or something which is great tzaddikim. No. Shekhinah is ready to enter a couple's house if they act in a straight way. And the exact definition of straight way is one of the underlying topics of this book, and we're going to further explain it later on. So now he comes and he says, it's up to you. It's all up to you. You heard that expression? It's all up to you. He says, why? If anyone would ask what you would prefer, the Shekhinah and Gan Eden or fire and hell, what would you prefer?
Fire and hell.
Certainly, right? The majority of people, right, would choose the former. Majority. However, if we question what most people actually experience in their marriage, right, the Shekhinah, right, or the fire and the hell, most people would tell us they wouldn't know how to respond. Meaning the majority of people won't know actually how to respond to that question. What do you experience in marriage? The Shekhinah, right, and Gan Eden, or the fire and the Gehinam? So he says, most people wouldn't know how to respond. On the one hand, comparing marriage to the Kodesh HaKodashim seems like a stretch as they don't feel the Shekhinah. On the other hand, they wouldn't say that they're living with the fire of Gehinam either. So what can we say then? So perhaps living with Shekhinah is reserved for great tzaddikim. And the fire and the Gehinam is for Reshaim. And a regular person, what do you get? Nada. Nothing. Maybe you don't get nothing.
They don't feel the Shekhinah. You know that it's Shekhinah, but you don't feel the Shekhinah.
There's no question that this is exactly what Rabbi Akiva was telling us. Rabbi Akiva was telling us that there's only two possibilities. Either you merit or you don't merit. There's no middle ground. Meaning, in this case, there's no Benonim. It's either you get Gehinam or you get Shekhinah. Wow. One of the two. You understood? Either Gehinam or Shekhinah. That's what he says. What is this dependent on? The pivotal point that distinguishes between the Holy of Holies and the fire in hell depends on proper intimacy. Okay? What is the fire that Rabbi Akiva is referring to? Even if a person doesn't feel the full heat of the fire now, this is a fire that kindles quietly within the foundations of the home, slowly destroying all of the good that a person could potentially have in their personal life. Oftentimes, it only finds its true expression when a couple comes already to a state of divorce, suddenly erupting into fits of uncontrollable rage with no semblance of the fine people that everyone knows outside of their home. The Stipler explained that this is a state of the raging Gehinam that is already beginning to manifest in the world. Which means, usually, people don't realize that the fire is already there.
Yes.
And it's eating away at it until it completely
Until
devours
it's too late,
it.
until it's too
And when it's already going to devour it, there's nothing else what to do anymore. Because then already...
No go back, no bring back.
Yeah?
No bring
Every person must recognize whether the fires of hell are quietly kindling within the foundations of his home, and he appreciates the subtle distinctions between one who merits and one doesn't merit Shekhinah. And if one has merited the Shekhinah, he has to understand how to nurture and cherish this special gift. So an open debate. Yeah, let's start with open debate. When I was a young Avrech, my teacher was Rav Mordechai Gifter. I met Rav Mordechai Gifter. He was one of the Gdolei Olam, as they say, Gdolei Ador, in the yeshiva of Telz in Cleveland. Telsh, right? Telz, Cleveland, right? They have the yeshiva until today,
No,
right?
yeshiva
So
in
when you
Cleveland,
go, the yeshiva in
Virginia,
Cleveland. No, I never went to Cleveland, but I went for my,
You're
I went for,
this is the strongest one?
no, that's Baltimore.
Yeah,
The
but
wrong
is the
city.
strongest yeshiva today?
No. In the Telz of Cleveland, this was based upon the yeshiva of Telz. And what happened was that my we're gonna call my minahel, my rabbi, right? Rabbi Levine, his rabbi was a Mordechai Gifter, so he was in Telz. And he actually used to tell us that when he used to go to Telz, right, when they used to answer Amen Yeshem Rabbah, the walls would shake.
Wow.
Because you had so many boys in there screaming, right, Amen Yeshem Rabbah, that you felt the walls shake. So just to understand what we're referring to. So what happened is that he comes and he says like this. He says, my teacher Mordechai Gifter informed me that there was a young enthusiastic priest who was publicly preaching the foundations of Christianity, that marital relations are the height of impurity, and anyone who wants to become holy must turn away from it at all costs. Which means that the priests, you know how the priests believe, that they say that it's a sin.
What is
A man and a woman, they're not supposed to live together.
Yeah.
It's a sin, right? They're not supposed to live together.
Where is this coming
And
from,
therefore, he comes and he says you have to turn away all costs. Okay? He also, one second, he also requested that the Jews choose a rabbi who would represent him, right, and face him in a public debate. Yeah, one more time, in a public debate. So you're going to have, by the way, these type of debates happen all the time. The Ramban, right, the Rambam, many, many, many times. There were many debates like this, okay? Fine. Rav Gifter explained that he was currently searching for a fitting representative who could explain why marital relations are in fact an expression of the Holy of Holies. Right? Would I be interested in taking the job? I answered, absolutely not. He asked him, do you want to take the job? He said, no, for sure not. He asked, why? Right? Why am I so adamant that I don't want to go? If it was because I already knew the truth and didn't have time to waste arguing with the some young priest, he could accept that. But if it was because I wasn't certain that I would win, or maybe that I wasn't even sure he was totally wrong, then I have a big problem. That's what Rav Gifter told me. In the end, Rav Gifter admitted that there was in fact no priest, but he wanted to impress upon me the importance of having clarity in this fundamental topic. Yeah, you understood? Right, you just missed gold. Yeah? So therefore, there was no priest, no debate, no nothing. Rav Gifter made it up in order that this young man, right, that he's an avrech. Remember, an avrech means that he's already married. But he wanted to impress upon the avrech that if you don't know the answer to this question about how can you explain, and you have to convince someone that the relations in a marriage is considered kodesh kadashim, you have a big problem. You missed the boat. You missed it. You don't understand. And this is the darkness of our exile, which leads one to perceive that holiness is found only in the Bet HaMidrash, and it's not relevant to one's bedroom. We have found in the exile of Edom of 2,000 years, surrounded by Christian influence that has unfortunately deeply invaded the basic worldview of many fine, innocent, Torah-observant victims who simply don't know any better. Meaning you come and you speak to people nowadays, right, especially when they're Balei Tshuva, right, they're lost. Because they think, they're Bal Tshuva, so they're not supposed to come and all these things, and no, and this, and Prishut, and you know, if you're not, you know, but let's see. So let's look at it. A new look. Let there be light. We're placing light in the world. Listen carefully. In order to pierce the darkness of Christianity, let's uncover the source of their mistake as expressed in the words of Chazal in the description of Bilam HaRasha. Bilam comes and it says in Pirkei Avot, there are two different study halls. Study hall of Avraham Avinu and the study hall of, which values Torah, and the study hall of Bilam HaRasha. Let's take a look at philosophy. Right? Let's take a look at the philosophy. And he says like this, Darash Avu, my dichtiv, what does it mean now? Min mana far Yaakov mispar et rovet Israel. He says, who's the one? Right? That's what he comes and he says. Who is the one? It's written, who can count the dust of Yaakov and count the myriads of Israel? This teaches that Hashem sits and counts the relations in order to ascertain when the drop that will come will be befitting for the tzaddik to be formed. Yeah, we know that the child is formed from the drop of the zera, and therefore, when the Hashem is counting, in order to find out when is it going to be created, and on this event, the eye of Bilam HaRasha was blinded, as he said. Right? He comes and he says, "I don't understand." He says, "Somebody that's so pure and holy, and his servants are pure and holy. This is what they're looking at." Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for them, is kadosh, tahor, pure, holy. This is what Hashem is doing. He didn't understand. Immediately his eye was blinded, as it says, right? Shetu ma'ayin. What does that mean? Look at the blind man. His eye was completely blinded. This is a Gemara Nida. Okay, Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. So Bilam taught the world that basically it's split into two parts. You have the physicality, the heaven and the earth, and the spirituality. The top half of the world is holiness, and it finds expression in the holy temple, which can contain the divine providence, right? The divine presence, and is also, you have the physical realm, right? Okay, fine. It's the bottom half, which is in purity, which finds its greatest expression in marital intimacy. Meaning they find that the biggest tum'ah is when a man and a woman get together. That's for them the biggest tum'ah. Yeah, for Bilam. Yeah, that's what they look at. Chazal taught us that Bilam's eyes popped when he tried to consider why Hashem, the holy Hashem, will look at that, which is an allusion to marital intimacy. Which means, how does that make sense? Think about it. You have the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty, the Omnipotent, and what He's doing is looking at something that for them is the biggest tum'ah in the world.
It was better to go to the animal than the woman for him.
Yes, but one second. You're correct in that form, right? But one second. So he comes and he says, so one second. So what's going on then? At this point, you can test yourself. How do you perceive the world in holiness? How do we know? What is world? What is holiness? What is that? So he comes and he says, if you believe that holiness is only in the Bet HaMidrash, right, where you have the divine presence of Hashem, right, with the holy books, this is a sign that you've been influenced by teachings of Bilam, which preach that the world is split into two domains.
Two domains.
Two domains. That's what you're saying, basically. That's what you're saying. However, a student of the Bet HaMidrash of Avraham Avinu understands that there's only one domain created by one creator who implanted his entire creation with holiness. And then with this perspective, a person will know that the Shabbat table with words of the Torah is mamash like a mizbeach in the Bet HaMikdash. And a couple's intimate unification is the Kodesh HaKodashim. Because once you actually put into perspective the exact opposite, now all of a sudden everything changes. Because now it's not anymore physical and spiritual realm. No. Everything's spiritual. Everything's holy. Okay? And now we're going to explain as follows. Let's understand what real intimacy is about in the eyes of the Torah. Why it's considered to be the facilitator of Shalom Bayit, and why it is relevant to the Kodesh HaKodashim. Which means, why is this Kodesh HaKodashim? How does that make sense? This is called the Kodesh HaKodashim. Why? He says like this, unfortunately, many people believe that the primary purpose of intimacy is to have children. Again, we go back to the first shiur. What's the purpose of marriage? So a lot of people are going to tell you to have children. They're wrong. Yeah? Right? To become one. To unite. And need for anything more than that is simply in order to keep the Yetzer Hara under control. So it doesn't lead a person to a transgression. The Maharal explains it's a fundamental mistake. And he says that in fact there are two different qualities in a couple's holy union. I'm going to read it straight. I'm going straight to the English. Because the man and the woman have two facets within their intimate union. One is their union for the sake of children, which is similar to all living creatures who connect for the sake of having children, right? And for the world, we don't want the world to be empty. But the second facet is because the man is the form to the woman. And from this perspective, there's a unifying connection. Yeah? And it is fitting that the man, who is the completion of the lower world, right? He comes and he says, right? And man's creation is not complete without a woman. This is the second quality of their connection, which is the completion of the man. The Maharal explained that in addition to being means of bringing children into the world, intimacy also brings a couple to their state of completion. That's what we learned, to be completed with each other. A couple's intimate holy union is the greatest expression of their unity, which can find expression even in the physical world. Now we can understand why Bilam's eye was popped out, because the essence of Jewish intimacy completely uproots his fundamental understanding of the world. The exact opposite of what he thinks. He comes and he assumed, right? You know what assumed is?
Yes, you.
Right? Assume, yeah?
Assuming.
So the way I had an English teacher that he said, right? You never assume. Why? Because that means you make an ASS out of you and me, which means that when you come and why is that very fitting for Bilam Rasha? Because he went with his ass, right? With his chamor. Yeah? So therefore, that's why it makes sense. So he comes and he says, yeah. So he says, right?
Bestiality?
Yes, bestiality.
Bestiality.
Yes. So he says, the Torah teaches, right, that even the physical realm was created by one of the Shem, which is the one Hashem. There's nothing else. And when you use it properly, and you have a holy unity, then you have none other than a couple's intimate relationship. So Bilam identified as the greatest source of impurity was actually one of the greatest manifestations of holiness, right? And therefore his eye, which is his physical world of how to look at the world, his perspective on the world, it popped out because it's completely 100% wrong. He didn't just make a mistake, he completely the exact opposite of what he thought. The exact opposite. And by the way, you should know, he's not the only one. I told you that I remember that a woman came to me once and she told me, Rabbi, I don't understand. How could they even say that you should wear tzitzit when you're doing relations? Right? It's a ben ishchai, it's a kabbalah. Yeah? So the question is, tzitzit. She said, you're doing something so not holy. So that's this.
But
That's exactly
of the
night. Okay, fine. The secret ingredient of Shalom Bayit. Yeah, 100%.
Better than food, better than cake.
100%. The secret ingredient of Shalom Bayit. He says, once we realize, right, that it is an expression of a couple's unity, it isn't a wonder the Chazal identified it as the facilitator of Shalom Bayit. Yeah? He comes and he says, right, I don't understand. He says, right, listen. He says, now I don't understand. He says, right, as the facilitator of the Shalom Bayit. Further insight into the secret unifying power of entity can be learned from the Gemara Bab Metzia. We're going to learn Bab Metzia. We're learning Bab Metzia. Listen to this. We're going to learn it on Daf Pei Daled Amud Aleph, which reports a very strange incident involving, right, Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Shimon, and a non-Jewish noblewoman. Listen to this story. The Gemara describes that both of these sages had very large stomachs. Upon seeing their unusually great size, right, a certain noblewoman, right, she commented that their children are not their own. Right? Why?
I'm sorry, I didn't
listen. There was a story with a noblewoman, a Goya. Okay? She went and she saw that these two rabbis, they had very big stomachs. Okay? So she went and she said, your children are not your own children.
Why?
Yeah? Implying that their stomachs were so big,
you cannot reach.
it was not possible to that they should have right relations with their wives. Yeah, that's what they said. That's what she said. Yeah, what's so funny? Yeah, the rabbis responded that their wives' stomachs were even bigger than their own. Yeah, that's what they said. Their wives was even bigger than their own. So now the noble woman retorted, all the more so. So then even more. All you have is stomachs. There's nothing else. Right? So these are the words of the Gemara. Yeah? Yes. That's what we just said. Yeah? So he comes and he says, right, like this. He says, when Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, would meet and stand together, an ox laden with a plow would be able to pass between them under their stomachs. Yeah? That means their stomachs were so big, you could have an ox go underneath their stomachs without touching them because they had such a big stomachs. So this noble woman was the one that said that. Obviously, they're not yours, right? And again, then they replied to her, no, theirs are bigger than ours, right? Kilu, that, what does that mean? So she said, all the more so. If your wife's stomachs are so big, so then for sure you couldn't have had. So all the more so, the children aren't yours. So therefore, there are those who explained that this is what it means, right? When it says that they intended to explain to her, the love forces the flesh.
Absolutely. What?
Love forces the flesh. What does that mean?
Don't like we have because
The final line of the Gemara explained that Chazal's cryptic words, theirs are bigger than ours, which literally meant that their wives' stomachs were bigger than theirs. Right? Implied a deeper message that the love overcomes the flesh. And therefore the Maharal, he explains the concept in the following way. Yeah, listen to the Maharal. Right? According to the opinion that explained that the love forces the flesh, the connection between the man and his wife brings them to be completely one being. Now, do not think that this connection is a physical one, as it's found with animals, because it's not true. This is because the man and his wife have a power of connection that comes from Hashem, as we already have in the name of Ish and Isha. This is because the name of Hashem is joined in them with a Yod, right, and the Hey. So he says this teaches that Hashem is the one that joins the Zivug and unifies them. Okay? And it is for this reason that his name is with them. And this is the connection, right? This is the connection, right, between man and woman.
No, put it in the
Yeah? He says this is the connection between them. Therefore, right, he says a transcendent power joins them. And on this it's stated that the love of the which is the connection itself, which is Hashem, overpowers the physical flesh. For certainly, it is fitting that the power of the connection should overcome the physical flesh that stands against it. Yeah? Incredible, Maharal. Okay? Now he says like this. Let's use the teachings of the Maharal Miprag to gain a deeper appreciation of the discussion of the Gemara. Okay? And he says like this. He says, according to the non-Jewish noblewoman's perspective, right? She thought that the concept of love itself was basically a physical power. Now, it cannot override physicality. So you have a barrier, you have a technical issue over here. Yeah, this assumption led her to conclude, right, that obviously their children were not their children, because obviously they couldn't do anything. So what's going on? The rabbis responded that marital love is not just a romantic emotion. He says rather it's a unifying force that comes directly from Hashem, and it holds a power that can overcome physical flesh. Meaning it could completely go through there's nothing, it's not physical. So from the words of Chazal, it's clear that the intimate union isn't merely a connection of physical desires, it's actually rooted in a godly power of well understood why the organ of intimacy is a facilitator of Shalom Bayit. Proper intimacy which taps into Hashem, right, and that's what he's saying, into the godly power of unification, constantly re-energizes and strengthens the foundations of a couple's oneness. Which means like this, what we have to, in other words, every single time that we do this act, afterwards we have to ask ourselves, do we just become closer or not? You understood the question?
Right.
Yeah? Did we become closer or not? Okay?
So more we do is we become closer, no?
No, I didn't say that. Yeah?
Because
The resting place of the Shekhinah. Yeah, many times, right? If people are not doing it right, the more they do it, the more that they're putting the fire and they're burning themselves.
Yeah.
The resting place of the Shekhinah. Yeah, he comes and he says like this. Let's examine why. Yeah, let's examine why proper, right, intimacy welcomes the Shekhinah into the Jewish homes. And he says like this. The truth is, the association between intimacy in the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodashim, is quite easy to identify if we look at what is found in the Kodesh HaKodashim.
Ask the
Yeah?
Rabbi. You ask me
Let's
for
see
our
what's
six is
inside.
good. Ask the Rabbi.
So he says like this. The Gemara in Yomah 54a, right? Rav Ketina stated, at the time when the Jewish people would go to the Bet HaMikdash during the Chag, they would roll up the parochet, and they would show the kruvim that were intertwined. They were embracing the kruvim, right? One with another. Exactly. So he says here, and they would say, look how beloved we are, right, in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rashi explains that they're clinging one to another, holding and embracing each other like a man embraces a woman. Okay? The Gemara concludes with a description of the Kruvim found in Melachim. So listen to now this is in Melachim. It says it's written like a man who's clinging and his accompaniment. What does it mean? Like a man who's clinging and his accompaniment. Rabbi, the son of Shelah, he stated like a man who's clinging to his mate. Rashi explains like a man who cleaves to and embraces his wife within his arms. Right, mamash, within the arms. So it's well known that the divine presence rested in the Bet HaMikdash, in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Most people would probably expect that the resting place of the Shekhinah to be on the Aron, right, which is the Ark, where the Torah is inside of the Aron. But Rav Katina taught that it was a mistake. For in fact, right, the precise location of the Shekhinah, right, is between the embrace of the Kruvim figures. It's in between the Kruvim, which represent the intimate relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. And the same concept,
Somebody said
okay, which is the exact same thing that he comes and he says, yeah, as follows. He says, right, as it says, the room of the beds, which is the Cheder Shel Mitot. Okay? So he says, a foreigner just won't get it. What does that mean exactly? So it says like this: the nations of the world who did not receive the light of the Holy Torah simply can't understand that intimacy is actually an expression of holiness. They don't understand. And this is seen in the Gemara there, in the continuation of the Gemara in Yomah. The Gemara there says, Resh Lakish came and he said, when the pagans entered the sanctuary, they saw the Kruvim, and they said, what's going on? They took him out to the public square, and they stated, the Jewish nation whose blessing is a true blessing, and curse is a curse, this is what they're doing? The Goyim, they didn't understand. The Goyim went into Kodesh HaKodashim. And remember, during the time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, what happened? The Haki. They were hugging or they were looking away from each other? During the destruction. The destruction. During the destruction. They were hugging or they were far away from each other?
Far away.
So, what was it? Away? Hugging.
Hugging, trying to put the people together.
Yeah? What do you say?
Sure.
Yeah? No answer. So immediately he comes and he says, were they hugging or away from each other? Yes. During the time of the Churban Bayit.
אחרי החורבן או לפני החורבן?
בחורבן.
בחורבן עצמו?
כן.
נא להתחכם. הוא לא רוצה להגיד
מחלוקת. אין מחלוקת. Says the Gemara, they were hugging. They were embracing each other. So immediately, yeah, that's what he said.
This is what I said.
Immediately.
Don't use my...
Yeah. Immediately they disgraced them. And they said, all of those who honored her disgraced her because they saw her nakedness.
אין מחלוקת, אחי.
Right? What does that mean? They went and they saw, right, what's going on. There's no question that this is not just like a nice vort or a detail regarding, right, the structure of the Bet HaMikdash. We're talking about the foundations of our faith, right, which are going to be revealed by the light of the Torah. From the words of the Chazal, we can see the difference between darkness and light, right? What does that mean? We're almost done, yeah? It says over here like this. The study hall of Bil'am and its students turned the world into two domains. And therefore, to identify the marital relations as an animalistic act, that is the antithesis of holiness, and that forces them to question, this is what is hidden in the Kodesh HaKodashim? Doesn't make sense. That's what they're doing in the Kodesh Kodeshim. It doesn't make sense. So he says, on the other hand, the Torah reveals that if the couples approach, right, the couple approaches their intimacy properly, as we're going to explain in the following lessons, it's actually the foundation of holiness, right, in a Jewish home. When I approached one of the Gedolim regarding these classes, he asked me if it is necessary to mention Rashi's words in Yuma that describe the intimate relationship between the Keruvim that was found in the Holy of Holies. Will anyone refrain from intimacy if they don't know about this? Meaning, if you already know this, you're going to refrain? Think about it. That means you have a chance, you have a chance every single time that you come and you're going to connect, you bring the Shekhinah. You're not going to do that? You're not going to do that? People do. Yeah?
So why are you telling me not to do it more time?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
1 minute, because we have to wait. With the Shwai, we're going to explain. Yeah? So he says, I answered that the Stipler explained to me that certainly no one will refrain if they do not know this Rashi. However, they may believe that they are performing an animalistic act, and we must teach them that in fact, they're doing an act of the Kruvim. Okay, and therefore it's the responsibility of each couple to introspect on their own lives and understand how they relate to this topic. This is the merit which separates between the fires of the Hechal and the Holy Shekhinah. A couple that is expressing the actions of the Kodesh HaKodashim, they merit the Shekhinah. But if not, then they have the fire. So it all depends. Okay? What about? It's all about Shalom. So let's finish. We're finishing the chapter. And he says like this, yeah? He says like this. Why does the couple's completion attract the Shekhinah? Yeah? Listening. Why is it that when they connect, they bring the Shekhinah? So he says, because the complete Adam is actually a merkav for the Shekhinah. He's a place for the Shekhinah, a chariot for the Shekhinah in this world. The concept is taught by the Maharal in his explanation why the Shekhinah rests on the couple at their time of intimacy. Meaning when they're intimate, that's when he's resting on them. So he says, because the man... No, the Shekhinah's there. That's when the Shekhinah comes. That's when the Shekhinah comes.
Now they come.
He says... Because the man and women are part of an Adam, and both together make one complete Adam. And according to the level of the completion of the Adam, the Shekhinah will dwell with them. For Hashem's name rests on that which is Shalom. And therefore, when they join together in intimacy, Hashem's name is always there. So we learned above that true Shalom isn't about fight prevention. True Shalom is the harmony which is found in a couple's ability to unify as a complete Adam. Now we know that a couple's true completion also includes the Shekhinah, which wishes to dwell with them. To the extent that a couple achieves Shalom, they will become a chariot for the Shekhinah, which will bring success and happiness into every aspect of their lives.
I'm saying it for years, Rabbi. Nobody listens.